Here we are. This will be the final part of our parenting series, part 8. There's definitely a lot more we could talk about, but for now we're going to close the series, and I hope everyone's been gaining. Thank you for listening. Anyone on Torah Anytime or my website, heartofparenting.com. The last two topics we're going to speak about, and I purposely leave it for last, are chutzpah and discipline. Most people think of the main parts of parenting is discipline. However, in my mind, parenting is a proactive mission, a mission of building a relationship, a mission of building emotionally healthy children, happy children, and of course, you have to discipline. Like the mashal we said about putting a fence around the property when you're building a house. The main thing is building the house. The fence you need in order to get it done. So discipline we definitely need. Know how to discipline, when to discipline, which we'll discuss today. However, I left it last because that's not what I call the essence, the heart of parenting. So let us talk about discipline. There are two main roles, at least what I could think of, in discipline. Number one, protecting our children. Discipline is necessary to protect our children. You don't want your children out all hours of the night. Doesn't lead to good things, and therefore we make a curfew. And what's necessary very often in order to get our kids to listen to our rules is consequence. But I'll stress, like we've mentioned, consequences alone are not going to really hold children, especially as they get older. Teenagers, they can fight us on everything. So we need to have a strong relationship. Within a relationship where there's conversation, there's love, there's respect, within that relationship, discipline can be very effective and successful. So one idea, again, is protecting the child. So I think we have to keep in mind, when we think about different situations that arise, we have to think about what we are accomplishing. Are we protecting our child? For example, if disciplining our child will cause worse reaction, it'll cause more harm than good, whatever the situation may be. You would like to lock your child into the house. Talking about a teenager, you like to lock them up 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night and not let them go outside. That would be great. Protect him from hanging out outside. But most of us realize if we make such a rule, even if somehow we're able to enforce it, nonetheless, it's going to cause more harm than good. The child will be resentful. The child won't be able to hang out with his friends, causing other harm to the child. In the long run, we'll end up losing from the immediate protection. So we have to keep in mind, we're protecting in order to build for the best of our child. So we have to weigh. Many times I get questions from parents, should I allow my son or daughter this? And usually what we discuss is weighing the negatives, the pros and cons of each way you go. So you have to keep that in mind when we discipline with intelligence, seeing the broader picture and how things may play out down the road. Another important idea in discipline, in protecting our children, is communication. Instead of just giving the child the rule, the threat of consequence, explain to the child what your concerns are. And as well, it's very effective to have a discussion with the child. So take the example of curfew. Discuss with the child, what time would you like to stay out till? Yeah, 4 in the morning. Okay, that's not going to work. What time do you think could work for you that you find reasonable? And they give you a time that's a little later than you want. And then you tell them, well, that's a little late. I prefer this time. Maybe we can compromise at that time. When you empower the child, that he feels that you respect them, you're sensitive to their needs. You tell the child, I feel bad that your other friends are able to stay out whenever they want, whatever reason their parents don't have control. I love you so much. I care about you. I can't let you hang out till all hours of the night. So let us work something out. When you work it out with the child and make him a partner in the discipline, in the rules, in your expectations, it's going to be far more effective. And you're showing sensitivity, not just giving a rule, but explaining that you understand what he needs, you understand where he's coming from, you're sensitive to it, and then you have a whole different ballgame in discipline. Sometimes it gets very challenging, when one child you believe should have a greater allowance than another child because of their particular situation. So one child you'd give a later curfew because of his ways, because of his challenges. Another child you would not. And it gets very complex because the other child will be resentful that you're allowing these things, giving these allowances for one child, not for the other child. So there's no rule that we can give. It's very complex. These questions need to be asked, need to be discussed. What happens when an allowance for one child would not be good, have effect on another child. Another purpose of discipline is a teaching tool. You want to teach your child they did something wrong, and therefore you give a consequence to show them what they did was wrong. This is especially relevant to younger children. And I want to just share with you some basic thoughts here. If we're trying to teach our child with a consequence, the child misbehaved in class, the child did something wrong, so you want to punish them, you have to stay inside, etc. So we have to realize that if we're trying to educate, we're trying to teach, then the most important part is not the consequence, which may be helpful, necessary, but the most important part is the conversation, is the discussion, is explaining to your child what they did wrong, explaining what you would like to see in the future. Some parents just give out punishments and they expect the child to understand. My parents punished me. Obviously I did something wrong. There's no conversation, there's no discussion. What a loss. The most important part of the discipline when we're trying to teach a lesson is the conversation, is the words. And it's so important when we discipline, to discipline in a calm way. If we're giving a consequence, there's rarely reason to scream, yell, certainly not throw out negative words, insults. That is counterproductive. When we get angry in our discipline, number one, we're going to make a lot of mistakes. Our discipline is not going to be correct. Our judgment is off when we're angry. We need to calm down before we even decide what we're going to do. We could say negative, harmful words when we're angry. And we're also being bad role models. We want to teach our children not to get angry. We want to teach our child to be balmidos, to be calm, to be kind. And therefore, it has to be done in a calm way. Not with anger, not with harsh words, but in a cool, collected way. Tell your child that you did this and there has to be a consequence. Furthermore, you can do it with love. Discipline is by no means a contradiction to love. On the contrary, if you don't care about somebody, you don't bother disciplining them. We don't discipline other people's children, or we probably shouldn't discipline other people's children. It's not our place. We have to explain to our child, again, we love you. I love you. I don't want to have to punish you. It hurts me, hurts me more than it hurts you. It bothers me to have to give you the punishment. But this is what's necessary. This is what we have to do. It's for your best, and I love you. The child may not be ready to accept it at that moment. But if it's done with calmness, it's done with sensitivity, it's done with love, the child will ultimately understand it, and it builds a relationship, not contradicts a relationship. However, discipline with anger discipline with negativity, discipline with harsh words, is not good discipline, not effective discipline, and also destroys the relationship between the parent and the child, which is, like we've said so many times, the most important aspect and the most important tool in reaching and helping our children succeed. The next thing we'd like to talk about is the all too common challenge of chutzpah. Like we mentioned way back, it's a gzeira from Hashem. It's a decree from Hashem that today there is chutzpah. As we get closer to Mashiach, the chutzpah just increases and increases. And that's why parenting today, among other reasons, is so challenging. We have to have tremendous midos to stay calm and to be able to handle our child's defiance, our child's disrespect. In my mind, the greatest challenge, the greatest crisis of chutzpah is not the chutzpah itself. The chutzpah itself, a child will grow out of. You do not see 25-year-olds talking disrespectfully to their parents. That's not what you see. You usually see either a good relationship, close relationship, or a distant relationship. But you're not going to see the type of chutzpah like we see on younger children. The crisis is not the chutzpah. That will pass. But the crisis is how we respond to the chutzpah. If we're going to take it personally, if we're going to become angry, if it's going to create a distance between us and our children because we turn it into a fight, into a power struggle, that chutzpah then is very dangerous. It could ruin the relationship. It can cause so much harm in the parenting of our children. How much tolerance we should have for chutzpah, I cannot give you a set rule. I think different parents have different personalities. Different children have different personalities. But I do think that a lot of chutzpah we do have to look away from. It's not something that we should always respond to. I think a no tolerance for chutzpah in the house, a child's disrespectful, you send them to the room for an hour. I don't see that working. I don't see that being effective, because even if you manage to get your child to never be disrespectful, I think there's about a 0.001 chance that you have any relationship with that child. And let me explain why. Children today are programmed to communicate with a chutzpah. Let me explain a little more. We all understand in a marriage, a spouse gets upset. There could be chutzpah. There could be disrespect, a sharp word that's said. Of course, if we're perfect balei midos, we don't say anything harmful to our spouse. But to have a relationship and the person is upset and they express themselves in anger, you're not going to be able to have a relationship where you say, you're angry now, I will not talk to you, I'll walk away from you, I'll punish you. It doesn't work that way. It used to be children would not talk disrespectfully to their parents, not because their parents would have punished them so harshly, but there was a natural fear, a natural awe that a child had for his parents. Today, the generation, the times are such, the child does not have the natural fear, does not have that natural awe. And therefore, when the child is chutzpahdik, it's really a form of their communication. They're angry, and they're just expressing themselves very freely, which in a way is a blessing. They're communicating. I'd rather chutzpah than no communication. So how should we respond when our child is angry? A girl, a teenage daughter is angry. She yells at her mother, you never buy me clothing, da 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 da. How are you going to respond? Punish her? Take away her phone? Lock her in her room? Don't talk to her? Ignore her? She's communicating, not properly, not the best way. Look, many husbands and wives don't communicate the nicest way when they're upset. It needs to be worked on. But that's not going to help her, it's not going to work if you shut her down. So what you have now is the golden opportunity to teach your daughter how to communicate and still be listening and keeping the relationship, getting it stronger. So if your daughter starts screaming at you that she doesn't have clothing, what you should respond, again, you're only able to do this if you stay calm and you have worked on your midos, is you tell your daughter calmly, I love you, I want you to be happy, I want you to have the clothing that you feel you need, and I want to discuss it with you. But I can't discuss it with you when you're screaming, can't discuss it when you're being disrespectful. So let me know when you want to discuss this, and let's work it out. Let's figure out what we can do to help you with this issue. What great parenting. You taught your child that their mode of speech is not proper. You still were able to listen to them, show that you care about them, show you're sensitive to what's bothering them, and you taught them that you want to hear and you're ready to listen and you're ready to work with them. That is role modeling effective communication. The same way you'd react to a spouse, listening and trying to bring things to a better level of communication. But complete shutting it down is going to probably end up in zero communication, and which also means zero or almost zero relationship. With younger children, maybe be able to be a little bit tougher with the chutzpah, but once again, I wouldn't go too crazy with the chutzpah. If everything is in place, if you have a close relationship with your child, ultimately the chutzpah will pass. Chutzpah, there are two types of chutzpah, it's important to understand. There's a chutzpah of a child that comes from anger, comes from resentment. If, for example, there's a weak relationship with a parent and the child is always being disrespectful, is always being snide, and they're really trying to maybe give you a message, I don't like you, I'm upset at you. That chutzpah is alarming. That chutzpah is a message that we have to think about. Is my relationship with my child the way it should be? Does my child have a deeper resentment against me? And what could I do to make this relationship better? That's a type of chutzpah that needs to be addressed, not by shutting it down, but by understanding the root of that chutzpah. But the second type of chutzpah that we are talking about is the relationship is good. The child is close with the parent. However, the child is upset about something. The child is angry at something. And maybe precisely because of the comfort zone, because of the relationship the child has with the parent, the child feels comfortable expressing themselves in their pain, in their anger to the parent. That's a healthier, normal type of chutzpah. And that needs to be responded in a calm, effective way, teaching your child how to communicate, but listening and hearing their pain, hearing what's bothering them, and allowing them to calm down and then discuss the matter. This is such an important concept. I suggest, I don't know, but maybe this is the gift that Hashem gave us. There's a gift in chutzpah. With a Rebbe that you're not so comfortable with, you rarely are going to accidentally say something disrespectful. When there's no comfort, then there's less chances, less room for chutzpah. Sometimes because of the relationship, because today the children are more comfortable with their parents, therefore they are more chutzpahdik. But there's a blessing in disguise because we can build a very strong relationship. In yesteryear, when children were intimidated, imagine that, children were intimidated by their parents, there may not have been the same closeness, the same bond, the same love, the same ava between the parent and the child. Don't mistake your child's chutzpah to his feelings of respect towards you. They're children, I know, that adore their parents, respect their parents, and yet are chutzpahdik when they're upset about something. It's not a contradiction. They're angry. They're expressing their feelings, so they let it out. But deep down, not deep down, they respect right there. They respect their parents. And there's some children that are not disrespectful on the outside, but don't have a deep respect, don't have a deep love for their parents because the relationship is so weak. In the perfect world, maybe for the perfect parent out there, you could have both. You could have a child that loves you, respects you inside, and is very respectful on the outside. But in most cases, for most children, you're not going to have perfect both. So, I would rather, and I suggest, if your child and you are close, and he respects you, and he loves you, and sometimes when they're upset, our chutzpahdik, don't go crazy. It's not the end of the world. The more important picture is the feelings the child has to you, and the love they have for you, and the deeper respect they have for you. If that's not there, you have nothing. If a child is not disrespectful, is not chutzpahdik, and you don't have a close relationship, you have nothing. So this is a good ending to a series which the focus of the series, which is the focus in my mind of parenting, is developing, cultivating a close relationship with our children, building our children, building their self-esteem. It's a proactive mission. It's not a reactive. It's not a defensive mission. It's a proactive mission. Sometimes we need a discipline. Sometimes we need to be strict. Sometimes we need to be tough. We need to lay down rules. But that's just a protection. That's just a fence. But the main focus has to be on the beautiful building we can build. Building children that love Hashem, that love their parents, that love themselves, healthy, happy, and ultimately successful children with patience, with a lot of patience. Be'ezus Hashem, we will see so much nachas from our children. I thank everybody for listening, joining us in these shiurim, in these lessons, and everyone should have so much nachas.